everyone, how are you doing this fine day? Hope you're enjoying your week. Welcome to another survival challenge, in particular, an Arkham City survival challenge. Okay, so my intros are getting a little ridiculous with all the information that you need to get, so let's try and get through this relatively quickly. If you don't know anything about Arkham City and you won't understand the challenge, here's a video link right here. Go click on that to understand the challenge better. Discord link down in the pinned comment, go click on that so you can participate in debate streams, post any writing material over there to get feedback, talk with people, have art competitions, get updated on every new thing that happens on the channel, etc, etc, etc. And if you enjoyed the video, make sure to like, subscribe, comment, share, and join the membership. Remember, if you join the membership, you get videos early. But I've wasted enough of your time. Let's just get to the inevitable end of this video when John the motherfucker Rambo just washes this whole goddamn challenge like your mom washed my clothes last night after she got them all wet. First up on the chopping block, we have the Punisher, specifically Netflix's Jon Bernthal Punisher. So Frank Castle, that's the name of Punisher, was a soldier in the Afghan war, was forced to do all sorts of terrible things to not so terrible people. Eventually comes back home and he goes with his family and they're doing all this normal family stuff, and then his family is murdered at a park by a shootout between a bunch of criminals that weren't really had anything to do with him, but then he finds out they did have something to do with him, and then he starts crying about it like a little bitch. Like, what a simp, dude. Just get another one. It's fine. And then he becomes really, really cool, badass Punisher for like 6 episodes of television, before then having the writers just take him and completely destroy and break down everything he is as a character, just deciding to turn him into Wolverine yet again. I am so sick of this. So yeah, I'm just gonna rip the band-aid off. I don't really like this version of Punisher, like at all. I think it's really, really bad. They do the exact same thing to him that they've done to so many other characters that I like in the past. I've bitched about literally this exact same thing at length being done to Kratos, and basically what it is you take a character who's just super raw and vicious and brutal and violent and kind of unhinged, a character who is not designed necessarily for you to like them, and then in an attempt to get you to like them more, and because the writers are pussies and can't actually write a character like that, they decide to instead throw out everything you know about this character, make him this guy who's like, oh, I kind of used to be violent, but I don't want to be violent anymore, but circumstances force me to have to be violent. It's not something I'm really striving to do, like it's not my fault. And also I got this fucking kid I gotta drag around so that I can have like emotional humanity kind of moments. God, am I sick of this storyline. Characters like Jon Bernthal's Punisher, Wolverine, Kratos in the Norse games, Joel from The Last of Us, they're the same character. You could put them in literally any situation, have all 4 of them make the exact same decision, and it would fit. Because there's no difference between them other than small details that don't matter. Now, Wolverine gets a pass because he kind of started the trend, so fair enough. And I guess if you want to give Joel a pass because he wasn't retconned to be this way, he just always was this generic and boring, fine, I guess. Kind of a weird defense, but okay. I don't understand why people like Joel so much. But my other 2 examples, Punisher and Kratos, are nothing like each other and nothing like those other 2 characters, but now they are. Because shitty writers that don't know how to write dark characters and don't respect those characters as they are, write this shitty generic storyline that has been done 1,000 times so that when that character is completely retconned, you don't notice because, well, there was a kid there, so obviously, no. You're really gonna try and convince me that the Punisher was convinced to not kill a guy who was making child porn because a teenage girl asked him not to? You want to convince me the Punisher would let a child predator go? I mean, good luck, I guess. Even though we had this exact same scene in Daredevil Season 2 where the Punisher was trying to kill the blacksmith and Karen begged him not to, and then he just closed the door in her face like, nah, I'm gonna kill him anyway, and then brutally tortures and murders him with her on the other side of the door. The Punisher would never, in a million years, and I'm not talking about the comic book version, I'm talking about Jon Bernthal's version of the Punisher that we get in Daredevil Season 2, would have never allowed a child predator to go. It doesn't matter if a little girl asks him to or not. By the end of Daredevil Season 2, the Punisher had donned the Punisher's skull, he had murdered the people who had killed his family, gotten his revenge, and still decided to go on with his killing spree because that was just who he was now, and that was something he wanted to do. That's where we left off at the end of Season 2 of Daredevil. At the beginning of Season 1 of The Punisher, they retconned the fact that he'd already got revenge for his family so that we can have a whole season of him getting revenge for his family some more, and we have him starting off the beginning of that season as a construction worker? who like didn't want to do violence, it was trying to get out of the life, completely retconning the ending of Daredevil season 2. This isn't something the Punisher would do. He wouldn't quit. He doesn't want to quit. You can't convince him to quit, no matter what you do. He really, really, really likes murdering bad people. Daredevil season 2 has Punisher hanging dudes on meat hooks so they can bleed to death, as opposed to just, you know, shooting them and killing them normally, because he enjoys making his targets suffer. They make it very clear he is a sadistic person who enjoys the pain and suffering of the criminals that he goes after. He's not a good person. He's a bad person who has honor. When they decided to give him his own show, they did not want to write for that kind of character, so they changed him. 2 separate times in the Punisher show, they have this guy quit being the Punisher and try to live a normal life, only to be pulled in by circumstances around him that force him back into the Punisher lifestyle. They do the whole, you know, oh, every time I try to get out, they pull me back in. Yeah, that bullshit. They do that to Punisher twice. They make it very clear that he keeps getting forced into this lifestyle as opposed to him just wanting to do it, because they don't believe that we can get behind a character who just genuinely loves violence and murder and death. He has to be a necessity. He has to be a hero. And he's fucking not. He is an infinitely fascinating character who they dumb down to the most generic bullshit hero imaginable, who's just like slightly more violent than normal heroes. Great. Thanks. This is also one of the reasons why I have absolutely no faith in the new Daredevil Born Again show. I don't think it's going to be good. I haven't seen the first 2 episodes. I don't have a lot of faith in it. It's from the same writers who wrote Punisher season 1 and 2. They have already proven with Punisher season 1 and 2 that they do not have respect for the characters and are perfectly fine with just ignoring anything about the character that's happened in the past and just do whatever the fuck they want. So yeah, no, I don't trust it. Kratos ends God of War 3 by murdering all of the gods, dooming the entire planet to death and suffering, and then killing himself to release the power of hope into the world, not because he was trying to help people, but because it was his last middle finger to Athena, who he realized was manipulating him the whole time. Then at the beginning of God of War 2018, we're supposed to believe that he's now like this peaceful hermit living with a family who's like doesn't want to use violence anymore and is trying to control his anger. Like, where did this come from? How did he get from point A to point B? Kratos was a Spartan through and through. He's a character who comes from an entire society where murder, rape, and slavery is considered an okay thing to do. He leaves that society to go to a Viking society that is also a society where murder, rape, and slavery is an okay thing to do. They're a very warlike society. If I had to name a more warlike society than the Spartans, the Vikings would be up there. Throughout 2018 and Ragnarok, every single character that is supposed to be a super villainous character are actually not really villainous. They're misunderstood. Thor has daddy issues, and Boulder's tortured by the fact that he can't feel things. And all of these different characters that should be completely okay with things like rape, slavery, and mass murder are actually more or less good people. And pretty much everybody really wants peace, but they just don't quite know how to get it. And even Tyr, the god of war, is actually a super peaceful, nice dude who is actually the most reasonable and kind of them all. And kindness is what's important. And oh my god, are the writers of these games intellectual fucking cowards. This story is not a story about Norse mythology. It is about a bunch of pussy writers who cannot get their heads out of their own asses, and they want the world to be a certain way that follows their very specific ways of looking at it. The writer of 2018 and Ragnarok rewrote Kratos as a self-insert character. He released the Valhalla DLC, which only exists to retcon every single evil thing Kratos had done in the Greek games and give him justifiable reasons for doing all of it. Because the harsh character shift between Greek Kratos and Norse Kratos was so blatant that in order to make the story make sense between the whole thing, he had to go back and retcon. And he did it for a story that's not even good. God of War 2018 should have been 2 hours long. It was about 2 dudes walking to one location. The whole thing is the writers just trying to come up with excuses to stretch out this fucking plot because they realized they didn't make enough. Oh, you have to cross this bridge? Well, we're gonna put this big black fog in your way. Now you gotta leave, go somewhere else, figure out how to get through the black fog, and come back. Oh, you got to the portal to go to where you need to go? Okay, Boulder's gonna show up and destroy the portal. Now you gotta find another portal. Oh, you're almost there again? We're gonna give your fucking kid some random sickness that makes it so that you have to now take him back to this hut you've already been to 3 times, and do this whole pointless side quest that you just forced in the main story so you can cure him. And why is he sick? Because he doesn't know he's a god, and when you don't tell gods that they're not gods, they get sick and it could kill them. Even though Kratos didn't know he was a god till he was like fucking 35, and he was fine. Because y'all just pulled this shit out your ass because you're struggling with all your might to try and prolong a story that should not be this long. This insanely slow pace in God of War 2018, where nothing of importance actually happens in that entire game, then translate into the sequel being so fucking rushed that half the goddamn storylines don't even properly end, or end in ways that are just completely unbelievable. Like how every single character that Kratos has deeply wronged in the first game, completely forgiving him for no reason in the sequel. Like, I get Freya forgiving him because she killed her son. That to me made perfect sense. But killing both of Thor's sons and having Thor, his wife, who is the mother of these 2 sons, and the sister all forgive him over the course of a couple of hours? Have you ever met a grieving mother in your life? Like almost 20 years ago, I had a dog that got loose from my house. The guy across the street saw my dog in the street and called the police on him. Animal control then came, took my dog, and brought it to the SPCA. The dog was stuck there for a week and we couldn't get him out. By the time we did get him out, he was super sick for like another week, and we had to take care of him, and it was like a really life-threatening thing. Like, he caught something while he was in the SPCA. This neighbor, instead of calling us or knocking on our door and letting us know our dog was out, went straight to calling the police. I still, to this day, haven't forgiven this motherfucker. And you expect me to believe an entire family unanimously forgave that they killed 2 of the sons in the family? All of them? This is so far beyond the realm of believability, it's insane. And since this entire game is done over 1 camera shot, that means that the mother of these 2 boys goes from completely fucking hating you to forgiving you to the point that you guys are like chummy, cracking jokes and shit at the end of the game, and that she's smiling at you and shit. In the amount of time it took you to play this game, what, 30, 40 hours? You killed both of her sons. This should not be able to be ended peacefully, but because they're trying to force, just rape. But because they're trying so hard to force this peace theme that they're trying in a God of War game where it does not belong, it does not fit at all, they are making the absolute dumbest story decisions they possibly can. Kratos is given command of an army for the Ragnarok war at the end, and he gives up that command to his 12-year-old son, never been to war in his life. How do people think this game is written well? There's a scene in the game where Odin shows up to fuck with Kratos, and he starts mocking him. Oh, you're a god? Who's ever worshipped you? Ha 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 ha. All of Sparta for many years. This is clearly established in God of War 2 that Sparta worshipped him. They built a fucking statue in his honor. He was absolutely worshipped as a god for well over a decade. The writer of the Norse saga, Corley Barlog, wrote God of War 2. He forgot his own story? This story fucking sucks. It sucks as a sequel to the Greek games. It sucks as a standalone story. It's terrible, and no one notices because it's slow, and there's a lot of characters that talk about their feelings, so it must be important. What they're saying must actually mean something and speak to me on a fundamental and emotional level. No, it's not important. It's pretentious. These games suck. What was I talking about? Right, Punisher. He's gonna die. Honestly, it's not really fair to put him in here. He's a relatively normal person with relatively normal levels of skill that are possible for a human to have. In the Arkham universe, he's going to be dealing with superhumans. Even some of the normal humans are capable of doing crazy, over-the-top, superpowered shit. He's going to be fighting against literally an entire city of criminals. That man in Arkham City sometimes takes on 40, 50 guys at a time in hand-to-hand combat. This version of Punisher just straight up can't do anything like that. And really, even if he were to survive all the way until Protocol 10, which is like 10 hours straight, which again is unlikely, he would be killed by Protocol 10 because he has absolutely no way of figuring out what's going on and how to stop it. Micro straight up says in Punisher Season 1 that without him, Punisher is just a missile without a guidance system. He needs someone on a computer to figure shit out for him. He's not a detective. He's not like a super genius who can figure all this shit out. He's just a soldier. And just a soldier isn't enough to stop the situation. It required hired Batman, the greatest detective in the world, to figure it out, and it took him basically all 10 hours to do it. So there's really no way Punisher can compete with that. Up until the point he dies, he's gonna have a really fun time. He's gonna go around killing all sorts of criminals. Again, I don't think he's gonna survive very long, maybe a couple of hours. There's just too many people to deal with here. So yeah, not well. Honestly, I probably should have used the Punisher from the PS2 game. Remember the game? You could kill people brutally, but then it punished you by killing people brutally, which I always found really stupid. Like, you should give me more points for killing them brutally, not take them away. That's the thing I want to do in the Punisher game, is to brutally kill people. Don't punish me in the game for doing the things in the game that make the game fun. It doesn't make any sense. Next up on the list, we have John Wick from Lassie. Get it? Because they both have dead dogs. Oh, I'm sorry if I spoiled the 80-year-old movie for you. So I know some people might be freaking out right about now as to why John Wick is so low on this list, because John Wick is very clearly a god of death. I am not saying that John Wick is less powerful than the rest of the people on this list. John Wick, as far as hand-to-hand combat goes, is better than everyone on this list even combined. You could put John Wick in a fist fight against Punisher, Rambo, and Reacher at the same time, and I think he's gonna beat their asses. In fact, he's better in almost every category. He's easily the best fighter. He almost never misses anything that he shoots at. He can take bullets and be thrown off of a 15-story building and not die or even be knocked out. He's just kind of like fucked up, and then, you know, a month or two later, he's back to fighting shape. And this is all shit this dude can do in his 50s. Can you imagine like a 25-year-old John Wick, what that guy was like? That's a scary fucking thought. No, in terms of actual killing ability, John Wick's gonna do fine. I think you can throw him in that group of 50 dudes I was talking about earlier, that Batman just jumps in a group of like 50 guys and beats them all up. You can throw John Wick in that same group and he will beat all of them. I would even go as far as to say in some situations he would do better than Batman would, because Batman isn't bulletproof, guns are a serious threat to him, and John Wick's suit actually is bulletproof. This means that he wouldn't be forced to rely on stealth in the same way that Batman does, even though John Wick actually does have some stealth skills. Not as good as Batman's, but still pretty good. Really, the only people he's gonna have issues with are the characters who are superhuman. You know, Killer Croc, Mr. Freeze, Poison Ivy, characters like that. Characters that are clearly either physically superior to him or have some kind of out-of-the-box power that he can't deal with. Like Mad Hatter's ability to mind fuck him. That's gonna be the real issue. But even if we take those off the table and say, okay, you know what? John Wick can't fight them, so he'll just avoid them. He just won't go and fight the fucking 20-foot-tall lizard monster. He still won't survive because he still has no way of escaping Protocol 10 at the end of the 10 hours. John Wick does not have any skills in terms of detective ability or intel gathering or really anything like that. His strength in the John Wick universe is that he's been in this universe for so long, he understands how it works. So he already knows where everything is. He's made connections with all kinds of different people that can help him get the things he needs to get, like Halle Berry's character in John Wick 3, or the Japanese dude who's awesome and in a ton of stuff, and I feel really bad that I can't remember his name right now. But I mean, it's like some Chinese shit, so, you know. But if you were to take John Wick and throw him into Arkham City, it's a totally different scenario. He doesn't know anybody. He doesn't know how this world works. He wouldn't know where to go, what to do, or really even where to start in stopping Protocol 10. Even if he knew what Protocol 10 was, which he doesn't, it has no way of figuring it out. He has no way of finding the League of Shadows or even knowing that the League of Shadows exist. In fact, he may not even really bother anyone unless they do something wrong to him. The whole reason why he's doing what he's doing and he's killing all of these people is because they wronged him first, and now they just won't let him live in peace. I seriously doubt the people in Arkham City are going to let him live in peace, but they may not fuck with him to such an extent that he has to wipe out literally every criminal in all of Arkham City. He might just fuck with the dudes who are fucking with him and then kind of trying to figure out a way out of Arkham City, but never really finding it. Maybe them fucking with him might snowball into a bigger situation where he'll have to deal with somebody like the Penguin or Joker, and he'll have to go and kill them. That might be kind of difficult because then you will have to start dealing with the superhuman people, and that will likely lead to John Wick's death. But overall, I think it's more likely he's just not going to get involved because they don't have a reason to fuck with him in such a personal way like he was fucked with at the beginning of John Wick 1 and like he has continued to be fucked with throughout all of the John Wick movies since. But if he can't escape the city, which he can't, he's going to inevitably die to Protocol 10, even if he never messes with anyone at any point. Like, even if they literally just leave him alone and he just keeps trying to find ways out of the city, he will eventually die to Protocol 10 because he does not have the skills necessary to actually escape the city. So I like John Wick in terms of his ability to fight people. He's at the top of the list. That's just not enough to survive here. Next up on the list, we have John Rambo from Stop or My Mom Will Shoot. So a bit of a side tangent before we begin. Stop or My Mom Will Shoot is a really, really terrible Sylvester Stallone movie. It's one of his worst movies ever. That's the joke of me saying that's the movies from, yeah, I know, jokes are always funnier when you explain them. But if you use Siri to look up that movie, Siri will call emergency services on you. I tried this 3 times. Even if you say, stop or my mom will shoot movie or stop or my mom will shoot film, it still calls emergency services on you. So it's kind of like a giant middle finger to that movie, being like, the only way anyone could possibly have interest in this fucking god-awful movie is if they are mentally ill. We need to call someone to help this poor person because they are clearly a danger to themselves and others. That's fucking hysterical. That's really funny. Now, all you motherfuckers out there thought that when you saw Rambo on here, obviously, I was gonna put Rambo last on the list. I must put Rambo last on the list because I'm biased. I'm not biased. Fuck you. So how would Rambo do in the Arkham City universe? He would do really, really, really well. While I did say earlier in the video that John Wick is a god of death and better at hand-to-hand fighting than Rambo is just a better god of death. And whereas he's not as good at fighting as John Wick is, he's way better overall at killing people. Like, way better.
Okay, so I know this is a bit of a tangent. Sorry about this, but I was curious. My mind was racing, and I had to know. So I wanted to actually do the research and figure out who is the best god of death in movies, John Rambo or John Wick. So I actually went and I did all the math. So I went and I took all of their movies, all of Rambo's movies, all of John Wick's movies, and I tried to find like who has the most kills in each movie and how many kills they have across the whole minutes of the movie. So when you look at Rambo's movies, at first it seems kind of unfair because he has 5 movies, whereas John Wick only has 4 movies. But considering that Rambo doesn't kill anyone in his first movie, I actually don't think it's all that unfair. And it doesn't matter either way. Remove the first movie entirely, and he still has more kills. 490 kills across all 5 of his movies, whereas John Wick has 439 kills across his 4 movies. Now that doesn't seem like a huge gap at first. I mean, it's a decent gap, but it's not like massive or anything. But when you remember that the Rambo movies are only about 90 minutes to 100 minutes long each, and across all 5 movies he only has 473 minutes, whereas John Wick's 4 movies has 522 minutes, meaning that Rambo has more than a kill per minute. And that's including the first Rambo, where he doesn't kill anyone. No, I don't count the guy falling out of the helicopter in First Blood as a kill for Rambo. The dude kind of stupidly got himself killed. That's not Rambo's fault. But even counting the 90 minutes of that movie, like 93 minutes of that movie, it still has him having more kills per minute than John Wick. And to be honest with you, I didn't actually think that Rambo was going to win this. And the reason why I didn't think he was going to win this is because John Wick 3 and 4 have so many kills. Like, John Wick 4 has more kills than even Rambo 4. Like, there's a lot. I think it's like 280 or something. There's a ton of kills in there. But those aren't John Wick kills. He shares those kills with Donnie Yen's character, with the black guy with the dog, which I have a theory that that's Halle Berry's character's son from John Wick 3. And Sonata, I remember the Japanese guy's name, Sonata, from the main actor in Shogun. And when you remove all the on-screen deaths that John Wick himself doesn't actually cause, it brings the number down well below Rambo. So overall, yeah, Rambo is the better god of death. Sorry, guys.
At the end of the day, Lassie is a martial arts film with some gunplay sprinkled throughout. Rambo is a war film. He doesn't just fight against people with his fists and his guns. He fights against tanks and helicopters. He destabilizes the infrastructure of entire cities. He creates explosives and EMPs and traps that he can then take out his enemies without ever having to be there. He is far better at stealth. He uses massive military-grade weapons and vehicles in ways that John Wick just aren't shown to do. John Wick will survive the whole thing until he gets to Protocol 10, and then the helicopter's gonna take him out. John Rambo can also survive the whole thing until the very end. I mean, just in Rambo 4, when he's like 60 years old, he kills over 200 and something people in a single movie. Much like John Wick, it really doesn't matter how many people they throw at him, he's gonna be able to deal with it. But unlike John Wick, who can't deal with Protocol 10, which is a bunch of helicopters showing up and blowing the whole place to shit, Rambo has been able to take out helicopters before. He can make makeshift explosive weapons and fire those explosives at helicopters to blow them up. We've seen him do it. He should even be able to fight against all the super-powered villains in Arkham City that I said John Wick wouldn't be able to deal with. because John Wick just uses like regular guns and shit, and a lot of these characters are bulletproof. Characters like Sub-Zero, Killer Croc, and Solomon Grundy, guns don't work on. But Rambo doesn't have to limit himself to guns since he can literally create massive explosives. We've seen him through preparation create massive explosives that can take out whole buildings. This is not a difficult thing for him to do. There is literally nothing in Arkham City that as long as Rambo is careful, he will not be able to take out, which again, not the case for John Wick. So, does that mean that John Wick is going to survive Arkham City? No. He still doesn't have the detective ability to actually find out what's going on with Protocol 10 and stop it before it happens, which means he'll have to deal with Protocol 10 itself. And while he has taken on helicopters in the past, he's only taken on like 1 or 2 at a time. Protocol 10 is when a bunch of helicopters with rockets show up and just level the entire city. Will he be able to take on all of the helicopters that show in Arkham City? I mean, it would depend on what number it is. If there's 2, yes, but I don't think it's gonna be 2. If there's 50, no. I don't think there's gonna be 50 either, but there might be like 10 or 15. And I think that's probably pushing it. I think he'll probably be killed by 15 helicopters. Even if he is somehow able to like hijack one of the helicopters, because Rambo can fly a helicopter, and then start fighting against the other helicopters, can he win a dogfight against 9 other helicopters at the same time? Probably not. So he will certainly survive longer than a character like John Wick, since he's actually capable of fighting back against Protocol 10 and John Wick isn't. But he can't overcome it, and by the end, he will still end up getting killed after taking out a couple of helicopters, but nowhere near all of them. Last up, but certainly not least, we have Jack Reacher from the Reacher television show, not the books, the Amazon series. And this one seems really weird because it feels like Jack Reacher shouldn't be here. Like, it feels like he should be way lower on the list, and in reality, he should. He does not have the physical god-level killing abilities that someone like Rambo or John Wick does. If it was just based on his physical abilities and skills, he would probably go above John Bernthal's Punisher. But he's the only character on this list who actually has really good detective abilities. He is a super genius who can figure shit out with almost no information, almost to the point that it is some kind of superhuman power. He is incredibly intelligent, and while he's only going to be able to take on a couple of guys at a time, like he's not jumping down and fighting 40 dudes at the same time like Batman or John Wick. He's not mowing down 200 dudes with DIY military-grade weapons like Rambo. And because of that, it's going to be a serious challenge for him to survive here. However, even though it's very unlikely that he will survive due to his physical limitations, he's the only one that could possibly stop Protocol 10 before it sets off, which is why he's last here. The way I'm kind of looking at it is John Wick has a 95% chance of surviving till Protocol 10, and then a 0% chance of surviving Protocol 10. John Rambo has about an 85 to 90% chance of surviving to Protocol 10, and then maybe like a 10-15% chance of actually surviving Protocol 10 itself. Jack Reacher has like a 5% chance of surviving to Protocol 10 and 0% chance of surviving Protocol 10. But he has like a 35-ish% chance of actually stopping Protocol 10 before it happens, which is a higher percent chance of success than any other character on the list. Does that make sense? I feel like that makes sense. Like, if he avoids too much confrontation with too many people, which again, he is a super genius, so I don't think he would be stupid enough to just throw himself in fights he can't possibly overcome, and he actually tries to figure out what's going on, how to get through it, who he needs to talk to, who he needs to overcome, and actually stop Protocol 10 before it happens by getting to Hugo Strange, he could win. He could actually overcome it. It's very unlikely, but it's possible. He can do it. And it's not possible for literally anyone else. So he has to be highest on the list, despite the fact that he's one of the weakest characters on this list. I'm actually really curious of what the response for this placement's gonna be. I don't know how many people are gonna agree with this or not, because I think very few people are gonna go with me on the idea that he should be higher than Rambo and John Wick. But like, if you've ever seen the Reacher series, you know just how smart this dude is, and that a lot of the crazy stuff that he comes to the conclusion of with very, very little information to go on is damn near supernatural at times. Like, it's not possible for people to be this smart. He has damn near Batman levels of intelligence ability, possibly even farther, because I would even argue that Batman in Arkham City does not have superhuman detective ability. He actually has a lot of help throughout the story. Reacher doesn't really need the help when it comes to the detective aspects of stuff. He does get a little bit of help in season 2, but it's not with detective stuff, it's with like the overall thing that he has to deal with, usually fighting and stuff. But like detective abilities, there's really no one that even comes close to competing with him. But that's gonna be all for me. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to like, subscribe, comment, share, and join the membership. Remember, if you join the membership, you get videos early. And always remember, y'all stay safe out there, you hear?